Hey, it's Coach Ans from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online. We've been talking to you a little bit about ACT reading, and we talked about the importance of doing well on ACT reading because it's one of those sections on the test that allows you the opportunity to make a very good score so that you can pad the composite score, of course, on your regular ACT. What we've also tried to do is suggest to you some strategies, of course, that we utilize, of course, to get a great score. But we've also tried to make sure we emphasize that you should probably look at what we do, of course, and try to adjust it in such a manner, of course, that it makes you comfortable. So when you go through and do your annotations and do what you need to do to prepare, that you're comfortable and you can do your absolute very best. Because remember now, the better you do, the more money you make. The more money you make, the happier parents are. So, and then you also, of course, have the opportunity, of course, to get in whatever school you want to get into, because ACT is very important. And let's do the very best we can, of course, to prepare as best we can. Today, what we're going to do is review questions number 16 through 20 and try to give you some explanation on why it is that these answer choices that are chosen are the correct answer choices and what the rationale is for choosing them as correct answers. We'll start with the passage. And what we did, of course, with this particular passage is informational. Once again, we showed it to you before. And what we try to do, of course, is go through and try to to annotate as best we could, try to highlight the things that are necessary for us. And then, one of the things I like to do is in terms of when we're looking at informational text, go to the very first sentence of every paragraph. And you'll be amazed at how much information you can glean from just from that. Look at the very first sentence of the passage and the very last sentence of the passage. You can get a whole lot of information just from doing that. These were the questions that we asked ourselves. What is our thesis? What are our supporting details? What inferences can be made? What conclusion can we draw? So, and these were some of the answers that we came up with in terms of looking at Kenny Holmes. But once again, you don't have to necessarily do it the way that we do it, but we suggest that you give it some thought. Question number 16, the main idea of the fourth paragraph, lines 23 through 31, and we're going to pull those out so you can see them. Holmes was better at playing music than he was at promoting his band. Holmes' band was able to earn money despite having a limited repertoire. Holmes' band became a national phenomenon despite the band members' lack of musical talent. Holmes would have had more success early on if he had taken the time to learn more songs. Well, let's look at line 23 through 31 and see what it says. All right, it says, while he was not a virtuoso. Virtuoso is one of those good ACT words. It means that he wasn't perfect at it. He wasn't what you would call, the best at it, but or proficient at it. But he was good. He was discovered. He discovered good at making money at it. He learned 3 songs: "Satisfaction" by the Rolling Stones, and "I Love Her" by the Beatles, and "Shotgun" by Junior Walker and the All Stars, and formed a band. So he formed a band. He's saying by no means was he great, a great musician, but he knew how to make money singing. So what that does is it tells us a little bit about what he's doing here. All right, and looking at that question, the main idea of the fourth paragraph is that Holmes' band was able to earn money despite having a limited repertoire. He said they made great money. He said they had made great money, even though they weren't, they didn't have a whole lot of songs. They played 3 songs, but they were able to make money with it. So the answer choice that reflects what the main idea of that fourth paragraph would be that they can make a lot of money, or they made a lot of money, even though they didn't know a whole lot of songs, and that they weren't the best musicians. They must have been good promoters, though. Question 17. Based on the passage, the main reason Holmes eventually preferred playing music at weddings and private parties to playing music in clubs was that A, he could play a wider variety of music at weddings and private parties. B, audiences at weddings and private parties were easier to please. Weddings and private parties were more profitable. D, weddings and private parties required less travel. Well, when we look at it, when we pull out that information, it says, unwilling to resign himself to the life of a starving artist. He said he's not doing this, just for the fun of it. He's not willing to go play music if he can't make any money at it. And that tells us what his motivation was, and that tells us what the correct answer is. And the correct answer is weddings and private parties were more profitable. The only reason why he saw this as a possibility was because he knew he could make more money at it. Because he's not willing to be a starving artist, because he's gone that route before. He hasn't gone that route before because he understood that it was a tough business and he had to do other things to take care of his family. Question 18, the main idea of the 11th paragraph, lines 73 through 80. F, Holmes often has to alter his musical style based on his band members, which band members are available to play a gig. Holmes typically needs more band members to play at weddings than he needs to play at a private party. Holmes' core lineup of band members has been relatively consistent for a business with a high turnover rate. Holmes' core lineup of band members is constantly changing because Holmes expects musicians to travel long distances. Well, when we look at line 70 through 80, it says 73 through 80, it says Holmes uses as many as 8 musicians, so he uses a lot of them. Two singers for weddings. He accepts turnover as a fact of life, so he understands that he's going to, have people that are coming and going, he's going to have part-time performers, and basically, he understands that musicians will come in and musicians, of course, will go. Well, based on that information, we can deduce that he said the best answer is H, and the rationale is the paragraph mentions that Holmes' band has a fairly steady lineup with specific musicians like Bruce Robinson, the keyboardists that have been around for years, but he also has people, of course, that are coming and going, and he's able to consistently replace those people, and they stay for an extended period of time because he gives them freedom to play. Holmes' core lineup of band members, H, has been relatively consistent for a business with a high turnover rate. So it suggests that he treats his people well and they stick around longer than typical band members when it comes to the wedding business. Question 19, it can most reasonably be inferred from the passage that Holmes' band members like playing music with Holmes in part because, in contrast to other band leaders, Holmes, now we talked about him being consistent with the people, of course, that are around him. So why is it that his musicians stick with him so long is the question that we want to ask ourselves and the question that we want to answer. A, is familiar with big band classical country music. That's why they stay with him. B, he allows members to showcase their talents during gigs. C, he played music in Washington Club for 15 years, uses sophisticated elements like digital sequences during gigs. Well, I know immediately one I know it can't be. It's not going to be C, and it's not going to be C because he's talking about what his experience. He's not talking about what he does to make musicians want to stick around. And the best answer to that is when we look at it, he says during performances, he lets his musicians take the leads and use specialized stripped down tracks called digital sequences to set up the tempo and fill the musical parts when necessary, ultimately preparing the messy alchemy of live music to something more canned. In other words, he lets musicians do what they want to do. He gives them freedom to experiment. And when we understand that, we know that the best answer, he allows members to showcase their talents during gigs. So the best answer in this particular case is B. Last question for lesson number 16. In the passage, the phrase something more canned, lines 86, 87, the same paragraph, mostly refers to, well, let's look, mostly canned. And canned comes up, and musicians say that this is in contrast to band leaders they've worked for who often rely heavily on recordings and use musicians more visual props. And so it talks about, ultimately preferring the messy alchemy of live music to some more canned. Where if it's live music, of course, and canned in my mind would be recorded. So, in looking at it, based on that deduction I make, I think the best phrase, something more canned, is, of the options that I'm giving here, is going to be recorded music. Well, that is questions number 16 through 20. And what we're trying to do, of course, is give you an explanation of why it is that these are the answer choices that are chosen, or the correct answer choices, and why we chose them. And what we can tell you based on that is if you look at those answer choices, most of the answers are right there in the passage. You just have to be patient, go through, know what you're looking for, and then when you see it, don't talk yourself out of it. And in most cases, if you don't do that, you'll do quite well. If you didn't do as well as you think you should have done, remember once again, it's all about making adjustments. And what you might need to do is go back and look at the way you're annotating. Look at how you adjusting your questions, or you using the questions that we're suggesting that you're using. So it's all about trial and error, but also having a plan when you go into the ACT reading test. This is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online. The next time we'll see you, we'll talk about some more questions on ACT and see if we can give you some explanation why those are the correct answers and see if you did as well as I think you did. We'll see you next time.